Hello and welcome to another alumni interview series. I'm Patty Moran here representing STEM and research. And here today we are featuring Amanda Vargas, who is a scientist at Pfizer. And we are so looking forward to asking you a few questions today. So thank you, Amanda, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to jump right in. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So I was a biology major while I was at Sacred Heart. While I was at Sacred Heart, I was a research assistant to Dr. Stopper. So that is kind of where I got my start in everything that I do today, was actually in his lab. And a lot of the lab techniques he taught me at the time are still things that I use today. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a great plug.
Yeah. And then after Sacred Heart, I actually switched gears a little bit and I worked at a company called Arborgen. It was a lab technician job, but it was more chemistry based. I was working in media formulation. But then I also ended up, while I was there, getting the opportunity to work more with their plant cell lines that they were working on, and do more of a quality control job, to basically check that the media we were formulating was working well for the different cell lines. So it was just something a little bit different than working in with, I guess, like animal or human cell lines, which is where my initial research experience was. After my time at Arborgen, that's when I first got my foot in the door at Pfizer. I started out actually as a contractor. So I was a lab technologist in their clinical pharmacogenomics lab. So this is working with samples from clinical trials. And so we're doing assays, screening assays, genotyping and gene expression assays, to kind of aid those clinical trials and make sure that the different drugs and things were working in the way that they were supposed to. And then that position kind of led me into my position where I am now. And so now I am a full-time scientist. Wow. And so I work in investigative toxicology now. So that's different than the lab I was working in previously, because the first lab was in the clinical space, and now I'm in the preclinical space. So instead of working with human samples, I'm generally working with animal and in vitro systems.
Wow, that's really neat. And so with that shift, your day-to-day shifted as well. Can you talk a little bit more about your day-to-day responsibilities, if there is a normal day for you?
Yeah, so actually one of the things that I like about my job is each day is kind of constantly changing. Every week there's new and exciting projects to get involved in. But I would say overall, I spend the majority of my time in the lab, at the lab bench, performing experiments. I mean, that's like overwhelmingly where my time lies at work. But I also get the opportunity to work with the different robotic systems that are in the lab. So we automate a lot of our methods, because obviously with the number of samples that we get, it would be a lot of work to be doing that by hand constantly. So that's kind of one of the new and exciting things about my job that I guess I hadn't even thought about until I got my start at Pfizer, that this was even a whole other possibility of things that I could do in the field. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, in addition to lab, I will have days that are meeting heavy, where we're strategizing, planning out experiments and different things like that, or even going over all the analysis that we do for this work. So generally what happens is we are performing experiments for the different research units at Pfizer. And so, we do spend quite a bit of time then working with them to go over the data and to make sure that everyone understands what the findings were.
That's really incredible. And what an interesting time to be a part of Pfizer, right? And just
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm sure you couldn't be more proud of what your team and your organization has been able to accomplish in the past year, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pride.
That's good. That's great. Well, thank you for that. So, what do you think are some of the major factors that contributed to getting you where you are today?
So I think first and foremost is the time I spent at Sacred Heart doing research. And also, in addition to that, I also did an internship. It was through the Amgen Scholars Program. And that was, I think, the summer after my junior year. And that was at MIT. And so I was able to get some different experiences from that research lab as well.
That's great. Everybody out in the audience, listen to Amanda. That internship really impacted her journey. So, the power of a good internship really does make a difference, and the power of strong faculty as well. So, I'm happy to know that you enjoyed your time at Sacred Heart. Would you have done anything different if you were to go back and do Sacred Heart again?
I don't think I would. I feel like all of the different things that I was involved with while I was at the university really prepared me well for post grad life. So besides, the working in the research lab and doing an internship, I also was really active in the honors program and served on their honors council. So there was a lot of opportunity there to develop my leadership skills in addition to just focusing on the science.
Yeah, that's great. Getting involved and taking a holistic approach to your experience here at SHU has brought a lot of value to your professional development, and certainly has a lot to do with where you are today as well. So, the last but not least, we want to go over, you know, this career path, right, in medical science. If you were to give a piece of advice to the future generation of scientists, what would you suggest that they focus on or remember as they're searching for opportunities?
Yeah, so I think so. Of course, medical science is such a vast
Yeah,
field. So kind of the sector of it that I am in is a very hands-on, uh, a part of it. So I would say that hands-on experience, first and foremost, is probably most important. And I think, it's easy to get sucked into all of the literature, and there's so many great scientific journals out there. And so, all of that is very fascinating to read through. But I think you have to make sure you like the hands-on part too.
sure.
And it also is extremely valuable to leave, not only with your degree, but also this hands-on experience. Because, ultimately, when you get to your first job, that's what's going to count. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Amanda, that's such sound advice, and we do appreciate your time today during our brief interview session on representing the STEM and research career community. We would love to have you back once the world opens up again, to have you on campus to talk more about your tremendous successes thus far. But until then, on behalf of Sacred Heart and the greater community, we thank you for today.
Thank you.